Hello, everyone. This is Dr. Ayleen, and this is Medicine Walk, well, on remote. Once again, I am up in my cabin because right now the roads are pretty impassable. And the workers, the Caltrans workers are doing their absolute best. Because right now the roads are pretty impassable. Okay, right now I'm getting an echo. The workers, the Caltrans workers. So hold on just a second. Their absolute best. Okay, all right, that should help. Okay, so it's always interesting when I end up having to do this from remote. So as I was saying, the Caltrans workers are doing an amazing, amazing job of making sure that the roads get cleared. But until they get cleared, well, I'm up here in my cabin with my dog Sam and my cat, and it is another case of me having to kind of let go of the idea that just because I want to be somewhere, that's where I get to be. So thank you for joining me again. And first off, I really want to say thank you, Rick, if you're watching. It was a lovely card, and it absolutely beautiful. And so, yes, we will definitely connect up sometime soon. Also, I want to say hi to my friend Bob, who I just found out has been watching. Bob, my old Fisk University friend, we got to know each other when I was a different person and even wearing a different name. So I was so tickled when I found out that you watch. So thank you. Anyway, and your words were very kind. Thank you so much. And Monica, I hope things are going better. I hope that that you're feeling better. And Carolyn, always, hoping that you're doing good and that things are going gently for you. So I really appreciate all of those who have reached out and who I've had a chance to connect with personally. And honestly, any of you who want to connect with me, you can reach me through Facebook, the Medicine Walk with Dr. Ayleen group. You can reach me through Twitter. You can subscribe here and leave comments. But I just wanted to start off because I really wanted to, acknowledge you folks and my heart to yours. Thank you so much. And also, since we're here, my New Year's plant, it's actually doing pretty good. So, they're definitely not ready to go outside, especially in this weather. But yes, and out of the 5 I planted, 2 have sprouted. So not everything is meant to come to fruition all at once. So I take this as signs that certain things are meant to come in and other things I'm going to have to be a little patient on. So today's discussion and exploration is going to be on something that kind of occurred to me after an incident last Tuesday when I was trying to get home. It took me 4 hours to get home on a trip that is normally 50 minutes, along with several detours. So the main highway, there was a mudslide, and that was taken out, and I tried going around this reservoir that was at its top peak and made it around on some very sketchy roads. But by the time I got to the other end, it turned out that everybody else who had the idea to go that way was being turned away by a police officer in front of a road closed sign. So it meant we were all going to have to kind of back up and, do a exit U-turn out. Well, there were about a dozen of us who were there. And suddenly these 2 deer come bolting up out of the brush straight at all of our cars. And deer are very shy creatures. They normally don't make a point of coming near people especially during the day. And as they bolted between the cars, one of them ran right into my car. So I can honestly say I've never hit a deer, but one hit me. So it wasn't hurt. It wasn't hurt. It got kind of startled, but it was like right at my driver's side window. And I saw fear. I felt fear and determination. And as soon as it kind of righted itself and then headed off with its friend up into the high country. And I was thinking, wow, if the animals are heading to high country and are willing to risk going among people in order to get there, we're in for kind of a bad storm. And yes, there was some flooding that came up later on that day. So their instincts were good. So it gave me kind of something to think about. The idea of when we react, it's sort of like the idea of fight, flight, or freeze as the way people respond to different circumstances or stressful times. Well, I think that before that happens, there's that idea of how we're going to act. And what kind of came to me was we act on instinct, we act on intuition, or we act on impulse. Now, let me break those down for you. Instinct, as I see it, is something that's internal. Maybe it comes from your upbringing. Maybe it comes from just your spiritual nature. Maybe it's based on, your connection with your core self. But an instinctive action, that's something that just kind of is our first reflexive type of thing. And if something comes from your instinct, it's probably a good idea to listen to it. I would think that that's a pretty safe bet because your instinct is coming from your core self. Now, intuition. I feel intuition kind of comes from outside for, those who have psychic phenomena. And I really honestly feel that everybody is to some degree psychic. There are very few of us who haven't had a situation where we're thinking about somebody and all of a sudden that person calls. Or it turns out we get a bad feeling about someone and we call them and they're in trouble. So I think that there's an intuitive piece that can come in, and maybe it's our higher spiritual self. Maybe it's creator, however you define it, however you define that consciousness in the universe, or maybe the universe itself. So that, for me, I think that's also a fairly good thing to listen to. A lot of people don't trust themselves. A lot of people have a very hard time following their instincts, following their intuition, which leads us to the third one, impulse. And my feeling about impulse, and there's light and shadow in everything. Impulse can be based on things, it can also be based on what you grew up with, but maybe it's based on either negative things that you have heard, things that say you can't trust yourself. Maybe it comes from, well, everybody expects me to act this way, so this is the role I need to play. It may come from physical chemical dependence. It may come from emotional dependence. It may come from codependence. The impulse, I think, needs to be looked at. Out of all three, I think impulse kind of needs to be observed and studied a little bit more. If you have an impulse to do something, the first question you should ask yourself is why? And by asking why, you take a moment, because impulse, in my feeling, impulse kind of wants to react. Impulse wants, it's like, oh, stimulus, immediate response. Somebody cuts you off in traffic And the impulse may be to, you know, barrel up on them, blare your horn, follow them to wherever they're going, or something along those lines. Impulse is like a reflex reaction. Maybe if you have a tendency to be a little too giving, maybe if you have a tendency to consider others' well-being ahead of your own, the impulse is going to be in a situation where, you know, if somebody says, well, you know, I didn't plan on how I was going to get home from the airport, and it's 11 o'clock at night, and I want you to come pick me up. And the impulse will be, okay, all right, I'll be right there, even when it's not necessarily something we want to do. And it's not saying that that's not the right thing to do. It's just saying that that's the reaction as opposed to the action. Sam, hush, hush. So, Sam, you're okay. So anyway, so in looking at how we choose, because what I kind of was thinking through is that instinct, intuition, or impulse is what precedes fight, flight, or freeze. Sam, hush. So I've got my dog. Okay, Sam, come around this way. Come around this way. Here, come on, over here. Over here. Come on. Come on. You're okay. If I'm sitting and talking for a while and it's not to him and he knows there's nobody else here, he gets a little bit, well, who are you talking to? Why aren't you talking to me? He can be a little bit needy, but that's okay. He's adorable. But anyway, as I was saying, when we consider how quickly we want to react to something, if there's an immediate reaction, my feeling is often that's impulse. Instinct and intuition will take a moment to consider. It may be not, and like I said, impulse isn't bad. You see a burning building and it's impulse that will say, well, I'm going to go tear into there and I've got to go in and I've got to help whoever's in there and I want to take care of them in a good way, which is really a wonderful, heroic thing to do. And it does not go with instinct because our instinct is for self-preservation. Our instinct is to survive. So when we move into impulse, where instinct might say, okay, wait a minute, I need to consider how I'm going to do this. What if I get in there and what if I can't breathe and all of that? Because there's a lot of cases where somebody goes rushing into a situation that's dangerous without observing what's going on, without taking time to assess. And it can create a situation where the first responders are now dealing with 2 victims instead of 1. And like I said, it's a wonderful, heroic thing to do. And it still has to be done in a way where you're able to do it to achieve what you want, which is to help somebody and to do it safely. Maybe your money is tight and you have somebody who asks you for money. And the impulse is, well, this person, they're my friend, and and I want to help them out. But if that puts you in the situation where you can't pay your rent, that's a problem. That impulse needs to be measured with a sense of self-preservation, a sense of instinct. I honestly believe, for the most part, people's instincts and intuition are very, very good and should be listened to. But it's possible that because it's been getting confused for impulse, it's like, oh, I can't trust my instincts because I always give too much. My thought on that, and what I offer to you, is that that's not your instinct that you can't trust. It may be the impulse. And when you look at why is it that you want to do what you want to do, and if you can take that moment to go, okay, this person is asking me for something, or this situation is here, what is the first thing that I'm thinking of doing? And when you consider what is the first thing that you're thinking of doing, then you don't do it yet. You go, okay, this is what I want to do, but where is it that this is going to lead me to where I want to be, or is this going to be productive? If this is a pattern, if the person calls you late at night and you're not feeling well and they want you to pick them up at the airport because they didn't pre-plan, yes, the impulse might be to pick them up. What I would suggest is saying, look, let me call you back in about 5 minutes. Let me think about it for a minute and let me call you back. And then you think about it, or you ask them to hold on and you think about it. Okay, is this something that I'm choosing to do, or is this something that I'm willing to do reflexively? Maybe it's somebody who never ever does this and for some reason they just didn't pre-plan it. Or is it somebody who is constantly asking you to be responsible for their lack of planning? If it's the second, then you might want to consider, you know what? There's Uber, there's cabs. I think you can manage to find your way home. I'm sorry, but I can't do that. I can't help you with this. So that moves it out of the impulse to just go along and say, okay, yeah, I'm going to do this, as opposed to, you know what? I understand that that was my impulse, but that impulse was only one vote. Let me think about this for a minute and decide if this is really something I want to do. This is really something that's right for me. And this is tremendously difficult, especially for those who have a tendency to be very giving, or who have a tendency to, for some reason or another, have learned not to trust themselves. And I get it. I understand what it's like to question and to wonder if you're making the right decisions, or if you're even able to make the right decisions, because there isn't one of us who has not made bad decisions. We've all made bad decisions. But do we base our faith in our ability to make good decisions on the fact that we made bad ones in the past? And I honestly think that you've got some very good decisions that you've made. If you're still here, if you're still walking in this world, you've at least probably made more good decisions than you've made bad ones. And yes, there is a factor of luck in it. And it's also about making the decision that allows you to move forward. And sometimes that's very hard. And sometimes there are cases of addiction that make it very hard to have faith in yourself and in your choices. But understand that whatever it is that you've been battling, whatever it is that is keeping you from trusting yourself, it's not true. It's not the whole truth. Because the whole truth is that you have made decisions that have had consequences. Some of those consequences were great, and some of the consequences were not so great. And in the times that there was bad consequences you didn't like, maybe you grew from them anyway. Maybe something good came out of that. It is so hard to hold ourselves to a standard that really nobody could meet. And honestly, it's a standard that we don't even hold anybody else to. That for some reason we feel we've got to be accountable for every bad decision we've ever made. It's not true. You are capable of making good decisions. You are capable of finding that place within yourself where you can be your own authentic self, and it doesn't have to be anything that anyone agrees with. And maybe it doesn't work out the way you planned it. But if you came from your heart, if you thought about it, said, no, this is something I want to give a try to. I want to take a shot at it. Because a lot of people have done a lot of pretty amazing things when other people didn't believe that they could. And they've done pretty amazing things when maybe they didn't believe in themselves, but someone else believed in them. We all have people in our lives who have believed in us when we couldn't believe in ourselves. And I know that I'm tremendously grateful for the people in my life when I was at a point where I didn't believe in myself. I couldn't believe in myself. I couldn't accept the idea that I could be more. And there were people who believed in me when I couldn't believe in me. You've done that for people. I know each and every one of you have had someone in your life who you believed in more than they believed in themselves. Now it's time to just do that in the mirror. We can believe in ourselves. You can trust. I don't care how many mistakes you've made. Each of those mistakes has made you wiser. You've learned from it. And maybe it's not so pretty. Maybe it's not so easy. Maybe there are things that are complicated. And trust yourself. Trust that if you make a decision, that it's going to be okay. That even if it doesn't work out the way you planned, it may have worked out the way it was supposed to. And down the line, you're going to be able to see that. Instinct, intuition, and impulse. There's nothing inherently good or bad about either one. They both, all of them hold light and shadow. I will say that if you can allow yourself to learn to trust your instinct, even if it's on something little, you know, do that gut check. They always talk about the gut check. Or think of the person that you admire most and picture them standing right next to you and consider what they would say. Now, this would be a person who supports you. This would be a person who knows you. This would be a person who sees that best in you. Imagine what they would say. Because more than likely what they would say is, you know what? Give it a try. You can do this. You have the ability to be able to manage this. And if it doesn't go well, you've got the ability to correct, learn from it, and move forward. You can adapt. We don't have to get it perfect. There isn't one of us that has to get it perfect. And we're more than likely not going to. The important thing is we stay in there swinging. The important thing is that we manage to learn how to trust what we believe, trust what we know, trust that there is a wise person and a higher self within you, and trust that you are connected to an entire universe of beings that are struggling to make it through just as you are, who are having achievements, who are having victories, and who are messing up just as you are. We're all in this together. And the more we are willing to allow ourselves to go with those instincts, like those two deer, they had to weigh, okay, we're moving into a situation where, as far as we know, these are humans, these are predators, these are large vehicles that, you know, have taken out several of us. But in order for us to be safe, in order for us to be able to be in our truth and follow our instinct, we've got to go into that dangerous situation because we know we have to get to higher ground. The threat of what's behind us is more important than what's immediately in front of us. So we have to move through. So sometimes we can move past our instinct and say, you know what? There's a bigger cause. There is, you know, it's worth the risk. And yes, something could have happened to one of them. Maybe it wasn't the one ran into my car, was that a car ran into one of them. But they were willing to face that fear because they knew they had to do it in order to be safe. We can follow that example. We can take a look, say, I don't know, it's risky. But you know what? What's waiting on the other side is more important. Whether it's a goal that we want to achieve, or whether it's something behind us that we know is more dangerous to us than the immediate risk of what we're facing. Either way, trust your instincts. Be fully committed. Both feet in or both feet out. And I know that you have it in you to do that. And if you wonder how I know, it's because I believe in you. Don't worry about it. I know that you can get past your self-doubt, because if I could get past mine, you guys can get past yours. There's nothing inherently special about me. It's not that I can do it and you can't. You can, because I spent a good long time learning that I wasn't going to be limited by what I believed about myself, because that was the only belief that could limit me. It was my own. Once I started learning to get around that, things started falling into place and got a lot easier. You can do that too. So, trust your instinct and your intuition. Use that to gauge your impulse, or at least to temper your impulse. And then you'll know where you need to go in order to get to high ground, because that's where safety is. That's where peace is. And that is where you can ride out the storm, however you walk in this world. So, thank you for joining me. Hopefully next week we'll be back in our little studio, and hopefully we'll be able to do the simulcast, for lack of a better term, on the Facebook page on a live stream, as well as the live stream here on YouTube. So in the meantime, you can comment, like, and subscribe here on the YouTube channel. You can also follow me on Twitter, and you can join our group on Facebook, which is Medicine Walk with Dr. Ayleen. So until next time, hopefully under slightly more gentle weather circumstances, I wish you balance and I wish you blessings from my heart to yours. I love you.